In this video, we will learn an interesting approach which will help you to drastically improve comprehension of any passage. In this approach, we will make a flowchart of ideas or gist that we are able to comprehend alongside passage reading. It will help you pick from a lengthy passage what is relevant. Basically, this exercise will help you to make a visual flow of what is being said in the passage. Of course, drawing a flowchart or a mind map in actual exam is going to consume a lot of time, but treat this approach as an exercise which is to be done for 2 months. 1 hour each day for 2 months with this approach. It will hardly take 10 minutes of time. After that, after the 2 months, even if you stop drawing the flowchart, you will develop a habit of looking for the important points in the passage, and you will be able to comprehend it in a better way. Let's practice this technique by solving a passage from CAT 2008. The technique is simple. Read the passage and take the relevant notes side by side. Let's start. To summarize the classic Maya collapse, we can tentatively identify 5 strands. Now, as you can see, the passage is talking about Maya collapse. The keyword "to summarize" indicates that whole passage will talk about Maya collapse only. Let's make our flowchart. Maya collapse will be our primary block. This is what we are going to do. In the left half of the screen is the passage that we will read, and while reading, we will pick the main ideas and make a diagram on the right. Reading further, I acknowledge, however, that Maya archaeologists still disagree vigorously among themselves, in part because the different strands evidently varied in importance among different parts of the Maya realm, because detailed archaeological studies are available for only some Maya sites, and because it remains puzzling why most of the Maya heartland remained nearly empty of population and failed to recover after the collapse and after regrowth of forest. In this part, author is stating 5 reasons or strands of Maya collapse. However, there is still disagreement among archaeologists on these reasons. Why there is disagreement? The author has cited 3 reasons after because. These are the 3 because giving 3 reasons. So in the flowchart, we will move below the hierarchy, making the second block. 5 reasons for Maya collapse, archaeologists disagree, and there are 3 reasons for disagreement. Let's read second para. With those caveats, it appears to me that one strand. In the start, the passage was talking about 5 strands causing Maya collapse. Now, the author is giving the first reason or first strand for Maya collapse. Let's branch out in our flow diagram. With those caveats, it appears to me that one strand consisted of population growth outstripping available resources. So we can write the first reason in our flowchart, which is population greater than resources. Let's read further. A dilemma similar to the one foreseen by T in 1798 and being played out today in Rwanda, Haiti and elsewhere. So the author has given an example for this population greater than resources happening in Rwanda and Haiti. Let's include that in our flow diagram. Example, Rwanda and Haiti. Reading further, as the archaeologist David Webster succinctly puts it, too many farmers grew too many crops on too much of landscape. This is supporting the first reason, that there were limited resources as well as limited lands. Reading further, compounding that mismatch between population and resources was the second strand. Now, author moves to the second reason. Let's identify the reason. The effects of deforestation and hillside erosion, which caused a decrease in the amount of usable farmland at a time when more rather than less farmland was needed. and possibly exacerbated by an anthropogenic drought resulting from deforestation, by soil nutrient depletion and other soil problems, and by the struggle to prevent break-in ferns from overrunning the fields. Here, the passage talks about anthropogenic drought caused by deforestation plus soil problems plus fern running over fields. We will include this in our flowchart as the second reason of Maya collapse. A little vocabulary would have come handy here. Anthropology means the study of human behavior, and anthropogenic drought means drought caused due to human actions. Farmers tried to prevent break-in ferns, so there must be some type of unwanted plants which adversely affected farming. Let's read the third para. The third strand consisted of increased fighting as more and more people fought over fewer resources. This is the third reason for Maya collapse, fighting for limited resources. We will branch out third block, warfare for limited resources. Here fighting means war and not some fist fight. Read the very next word, Maya warfare. Let's read further. Maya warfare, already endemic, peaked just before the collapse. That is not surprising when one reflects that at least 5 million people, perhaps many more, were crammed into an area smaller than the US state of Colorado. That warfare would have decreased further the amount of land available for agriculture by creating no man's land between principalities where it was now unsafe to farm. So nothing worth including in flowchart. It is just supporting our third reason of fighting for limited resources. Reading passage further. Bringing matters to a head was the strand of climate change. Here comes our fourth strand or fourth reason. Let's include in the chart climate change. The drought at the time of the classic collapse was not the first drought that the Maya had lived through, but it was the most severe. At the time of previous droughts, there were still uninhabited parts of the Maya landscape, and people at a site affected by drought could save themselves by moving to another site. However, by the time of the classic collapse, the landscape was now full. There was no useful unoccupied land in the vicinity on which to begin anew, and the whole population could not be accommodated in the few areas that continued to have reliable water supplies. So, earlier during droughts, drought means scarcity of water, earlier during droughts, the impact was less as people used to leave the drought affected area for some better place. But this time, there was no land left to move on to. Let's include in our fourth block. In this drought, the landscape was fully occupied. Reading next para. As our fifth strand, here comes the fifth reason. We have to wonder why the kings and nobles failed to recognize and solve these seemingly obvious problems undermining their society. Their attention was evidently focused on their short-term concerns of enriching themselves, waging wars, erecting monuments, competing with each other, and extracting enough food from the peasants to support all those activities. Like most leaders throughout human history, the Maya kings and nobles did not heed long-term problems insofar as they perceived them. So we will make another block for fifth and final reason, which is kings and nobles focused on their short-term concern. Now we have got our 5 reasons. Let's read the last paragraph. Finally, while we still have some other past societies to consider in this book, before we switch our attention to the modern world, we must already be struck by some parallels between the Maya and the past societies. As on M, the Maya environmental and population problems led to increasing warfare and civil strife. Similarly, on E and at C, no need to read the weird names, on E and C, the Maya peak population numbers were followed swiftly by political and social collapse. Keyword parallel denotes that comparison with others is being made here. Paralleling the eventual extension of agriculture. Again, the comparison continues. Paralleling the eventual extension of agriculture from coastal lowlands to its uplands and from the floodplain to the hills, sea's inhabitants also expanded from the floodplain to the more fragile hill slopes, leaving them with a larger population to feed when the agriculture boom in the hills went bust. Like chiefs erecting ever larger statues, eventually crowned by P, and like A treating themselves to necklaces of 2000 tea beads. Maya kings sought to outdo each other with more and more impressive temples covered with thicker and thicker plaster, reminiscent in turn of the extravagant conspicuous consumption by modern American CEOs. The passivity of and Maya kings in the face of the real big threats to their societies completes our list of disquieting parallels. So this completes the list of parallels or examples. Disquieting means causing worry. The whole para compared Maya with others, and the comparisons were quite worrisome. In the flowchart, we will make a branch from the main block, as it is not related to any of the reasons of Maya collapse. Gist of the last para is comparison of Maya with others. No need to write the detail of this comparison. If any question is based on this, then we will refer the last para. This completes our flow diagram. Whole passage of 700 words is reduced to this flowchart of approx 40 words. It took me time to make this as I was explaining step by step, but with practice you can increase the speed. This technique is only for practicing, that too at least 2-3 months before the exam, and after that you won't have to actually draw the flowchart. It will then become a habit to identify gist of each paragraph and visualize different blocks which link with each other throughout the passage. Now let's move to questions. First question says, which of the following best represents the factor that has been cited by the author in the context of Rwanda and Haiti? We have included example of Rwanda and Haiti in our flowchart. It's in first reason column, population greater than resources, which we got from the second para. Let's see the options. Option A, various ethnic groups competing for land and other resources. This seems to be correct. Still, we will read other options. Option B, various ethnic groups competing for limited land resources. Not really. They were not competing only for land, but for other resources as well. So option A is a better option than this. Option C, various ethnic groups fighting with each other. There is no mention of ethnic groups fighting in Rwanda and Haiti. Fighting is a strong word. We can't just assume it. Option D, various ethnic groups competing for political power. Not mentioned anywhere. Option E, various ethnic groups fighting for their identity. A big no. They never fought for identity. They only fought for land and other resources. So the answer is option A. Second question. By an anthropogenic drought, the author means. Look in the flowchart. Block 2. Anthropogenic drought caused by a combination of deforestation plus soil problem plus ferns. Let's look for a similar option. Option A, a drought caused by lack of rains. Incorrect, this is not mentioned. Option B, a drought caused due to deforestation. It is only one of the 3 reasons. Option C, a drought caused by failure to prevent break-in ferns from overrunning the fields. Again, only one of the reasons. Anthropogenic drought is caused by 3 reasons combined. Option D, a drought caused by actions of human beings. Yes, this combines all the reasons stated. If you think about it, all the three reasons mentioned, that is deforestation, soil problems and ferns, were caused by human actions only. We also discussed that anthropogenic drought is drought caused by human actions, as anthropology means the study of human behavior. So either you have to use vocabulary or you will have to guess the meaning contextually. Option E, a drought caused by climate changes. No, this is altogether a different reason. Third question. According to the passage, the drought at the time of Maya collapse had a different impact compared to the droughts earlier because we included this under the reason of climate change. The para says, in this drought, the landscape was fully occupied. Earlier, people used to move out from drought-affected regions to other places, but this time there was no place left to go, as the landscape was fully occupied. Let's find a matching option. Option A, the Maya kings continued to be extravagant when common people were suffering. This is the fifth strand or fifth reason for Maya collapse. But this is not the reason for different impact. Option B, it happened at the time of collapse of leadership among Mayas. Not mentioned anywhere. Option C, it happened when the Maya population had occupied all available land suited for agriculture. Yes, exactly. As all the land was occupied, people had nowhere else to go to. Options D and E are also not the reason as to why the drought had a different impact during the Maya collapse. Option C is the answer. Fourth question. According to the author, why is it difficult to explain the reasons for Maya collapse? This is mentioned in the first paragraph. We even wrote it in our diagram. Archaeologists disagreed and there were three reasons for the disagreement. We didn't write the reasons in the flowchart, but we know where to look for them. These are the exact lines from the first para. Option D sums up the first and the third reason. It is our answer. Option A is not mentioned anywhere. Option B is not the reason why it is difficult to explain Maya collapse. Option C, consistent evidence, and option E, 5 million people crammed into a small area. Again, both are not mentioned anywhere in the passage. Last question. Which factor has not been cited as one of the factors causing the collapse of Maya society? So basically we have to see which option we have not included in our 5 reason blocks of the flowchart. Option A, environmental degradation due to excess population. Yes, it was covered in the first and second strand. Population growth outstripped resources, which led to deforestation and soil erosion. So this option is incorrect. Option B, social collapse due to excess population. This reason is also cited in the last paragraph. Also, excess population is mentioned in the first block itself. Option C, increased warfare among Maya people. This is the third strand. Option D, climate change. Yes, this is the fourth strand. Option E, obsession of Maya population with their own short-term concerns. Look into fifth reason block. We have written kings and nobles focused on short-term concerns, not an obsession of Maya population with their short-term concerns. In fact, the passage states that problems of Maya people were unheard by the kings and nobles as they were focused on their own short-term concerns. So the correct answer is option E. This completes the flowchart approach. We were able to solve all questions just by the gist that we wrote in the form of a sequence of events that happened in the passage. I highly recommend that you practice at least one RC every day with this approach for 2-3 months. You will develop an aptitude to prepare this flowchart in your mind instead of physically drawing it on paper. RC has huge weightage in your exam, and yet very few practical ways are available for this section. I hope this approach works out for you. Thanks for watching.